we are now joined by the All right, we're now joined by the communications officer of the Democratic National Alliance, Ms. Chaneil Imhoff. She's joining us via the phone, and our focus of our discussion this morning is going to be mental wellness and the pandemic. And when you constantly get headlines or stories or information like what I just shared with you, it does something to the mind. There's no question about it. Chaneil Imhoff, good morning. Welcome to Observer AM once again.
Good morning, Darren. It's a pleasure to be back. It's been a while.
Yes, it has been a while, but, no time like the present. The Democratic National Alliance, of course, has been vocal on the management of this pandemic, during the course of the management of this pandemic, and certainly most recently with the issue of mandatory vaccinations. But this morning, we want to hone in on the impact on mental wellness. What is the position, or what's the assessment of your party with respect to the current state and the impact of mandatory vaccinations? I guess we could start there.
Right. So before I even go into that, I'd just like to extend condolences to the families of the two gentlemen that passed this morning, and also to the family of Miss Jane Finch.
Yes.
Who unfortunately lost her life early this morning.
Yeah. Thank you, Chaneil. Yes.
In terms of the mental impact of a pandemic, and not just mandatory vaccinations, but we have to go way back to, the series of lockdowns. Some persons' homes are not their solace. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So you're trapped in a place that is causing toxicity for you and your family. And then, of course, you have, uncertainty, that level of uncertainty and crippling anxiety that can grip a person when they don't know what's next. Every time you see, I know I can say this for myself, I can't speak for others, but every time I see the graphics for the cabinet press briefing,
mm-hmm.
I just inhale and exhale, and I'm like, what now?
Is that the cabinet? Is that the cabinet press briefing, or the notice for
the notice
from
every
hospital?
Time I get a notice from the hospital, every time I get a press briefing notice, anything. And I know there are a lot of persons who have this same sort of fatigue when it comes to, news about the pandemic, because all you're thinking is, what's next? And that can cause a lot of crippling anxiety. And as much as we're trying to put policies in place, what are we putting in place to deal with the overarching mental health impact of the pandemic? Sunday coming on the 10th is actually World Mental Health Day. And I think it's disappointing that we're still in 2021 and our legislation for mental health and mental wellness, mental treatment is from 1957. We are of the view that right now, more than ever, we have to put some serious effort into ensuring that the mental well-being of our citizens is taken care of. Because a few weeks ago, we had 3 suicides back to back to back.
All right.
And that came on the heels of, Suicide Prevention Day as well. So we have all of these national, international days and commemorations, and not just decorations on our calendars. What they are reminders to us to ensure that we are putting policies, plans, etc. in place to ensure that our citizens are doing well. Now, we have NGOs and CSOs, etc., and mental health advocates doing their best, but an issue such as this that is so wide-reaching and overarching needs serious attention. Because as much as many persons may, disagree on the issue of mandatory vaccinations, etc., that's just one part of a very huge puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
We have to look at how policies like this impact vulnerable people. Because at the end of the day, we're dealing with people, we're dealing with human beings, we're dealing with people's lives. And physical health is not the only type of health. We often make decisions and put things out there without really thinking of the mental health impact that it will have on a person or group of persons.
Is in your mind, or at least the thinking of the party that you represent and you're representing this morning, do you think that is the great failing of the current approach to dealing with this pandemic, that there's too much focus on the physical, or the virus, its impact on our bodies, etc., and ignoring or not properly or adequately addressing the mental aspect? I get
Yeah,
the
I
sense
think we
that's what
think
you're
it's
saying.
one of the many failures. We think it's one of them,
Okay.
but one of the it's definitely on top of the list. We've always been vocal about the level of communication, education, etc. But this is also something that many persons, when we're looking at the handling of the pandemic, it doesn't even cross their mind to say, those persons who are suffering with mental illnesses or persons who have the propensity, what is being done to help them. So we would agree that this is a huge failing on the part of, on the part of the administration when it comes to handling this pandemic.
Okay. The issue of, just going back to the issue of mandatory vaccination, do you think that that adds another dimension to the challenges with respect to mental health, and how so specifically?
Okay. Yes. The short answer is yes. The long
Okay.
answer I'll give you in a bit of an anecdote. I know of quite a few persons who, because of my platform on mental health, etc., and persons are going through it,
Mm-hmm.
they sometimes they contact me and say, "Hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is what's going on right now," because I've made myself available to persons, right? Because I understand how important it is to talk. Someone who I know, someone who I'm very, cordial with, had an issue with their doctor, where the doctor told them they don't want to see them in their office until they become vaccinated. Now, this person has many health issues and was told previously that, you should hold off for a bit, let's do some tests, etc., etc. Then we had the mandatory vaccine policy, and then the whole tune changed. And this person was very confused. This person is not against being vaccinated at all.
Okay.
But they were following instructions from before, and then now the instructions have changed, and it's left them in a state of confusion, trying to figure out what's going on. Are they going to be okay? Are they going to be all right? And these are things you have to think about, because what we don't like is that persons who ask questions, etc., they are lumped into this category of being quote unquote anti-vaxxers, and some persons who I've seen being labeled as such, not so, as we would say. So we have this sort of, not only does it present challenges and issues for persons who may not be able to return to work, but it become a very political and divisive issue, which is I know persons who stop talking over their thoughts on vaccines and mandatory vaccination. They've stopped talking, family, friends, etc. And at a time like this, with so much uncertainty, that is not the type of thing we need going on right now. So it adds a whole other layer of complexity to an already tenuous issue.
All right, but that's not unique to Antigua, though.
No.
You would admit. I think this is a global phenomenon where the issue of vaccinations has divided societies all over.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. What do you think specifically the administration can do to address that issue? Because, I mean, as much as you would like to be in the seat of, let's say, a Max Hurst or a Milford Nicholas, Minister of Information, you're not currently. So what would be your advice to the administration in addressing these issues? Because I would like to think that they are aware of at least some of what you're saying.
Of course, they are aware. These are things that have been said from the beginning, not even just with mandatory vaccination, but since right back when persons had, questions about even the dashboard. It started from since then. And I think one of the issues, I don't think it's something that they can do at this point. They can try, but something that should have been done was better communication. Now let me explain, because a lot of time when you say this, people tend to jump down your throat and they say, well, the information is here, there, and everywhere. This is that. One, not everybody processes information on the same level. Right? It's a bit ableist to think that we can say something one way and it's just going to reach everyone. There are persons out there who are neurodivergent who might need a bit more. Right? So that's the first thing. Two, the way in which you present information is also very important. You can't be sarcastic, condescending, demeaning, and belittling and expect your message to reach persons who it is supposed to reach. And that played very heavily into the divisiveness. So proper communication, education, etc., should have been done from the onset. And we do understand and appreciate that nobody has a guidebook for COVID-19. Literally no one was expecting this. But from the beginning, not just the Democratic National Alliance, but the people of Antigua and Barbuda have been literally telling them what they need, and it's been pretty much ignored so far. And now we're at a point where, it's become so divisive and so contentious that persons have literally lumped COVID-19 and vaccination into that category of things that they don't discuss with other people anymore. Some people don't discuss politics with other people. Some people don't discuss religion. It's just become a situation where persons like, I don't talk about that with people anymore for fear of being attacked from one end of the spectrum or the next.
Yeah. I chuckle lightly because more and more people are saying, I give up. Particularly people on, well, I guess you could say my side of the debate. This is one of the few issues I've come out publicly on. But folks just say they can't be bothered anymore. So once somebody starts up the conversation, they just back off. Do you think the well has been poisoned, though, to the extent that we can't recover, though? That's really the question I need to ask you. Do you think that, there is anything that any government can do? I mean, and your party is an aspiring governing party. Do you think that there's anything specifically the administration can do to perhaps lower the temperature on this issue?
We have to change the rhetoric immediately. I mean, I know not everyone will hear something and just take it as it is and just go ahead. There are persons who will have questions. There are persons who will, I wouldn't use the word oppose, but some people, they like to be the devil's advocate as if he asked for one. But the rhetoric has to be changed immediately. We can't continue down the communication path that we're going, because it's just creating more issues. It's creating more issues than we like. A person, you have children, I have children, Darren, and sometimes when you tell your child, don't do this, or you can't do that, they look
exactly
at you
what they do.
And they take it as they're like, okay, Beck, I'm going to definitely do it. And you have to think of another way to get them not to do the thing you don't want them to do. We really have to try a different approach. If you realize that the approach that you're using is not working, then you must try something else. So as opposed to, to give you an example, as opposed to flying down someone's throat and calling them an anti-vaxxer for having a question, that person might just be curious. I know some persons who in the onset were like, yeah, I know about this. And I was able to have a conversation with them, sending some information, blah, 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 blah. They will come back and said, I did some reading on that stuff that you sent to me. I saw this and that from this place. And I was like, yeah, I went and got vaccinated the other day. Yeah. Sometimes you attract more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. You know that saying, right?
I certainly do, and it makes perfect sense. But I tell you what.
And it's important.
Yeah, I tell you what. The text says that we have to share some messages to help pay for this time. So we'll pause, and then I want us to break out mental health challenges in, let's say, your generation and generations above your generation, because everyone's mental health challenges may be different. Different challenges, and so we want to develop that and get into some more specifics as far as the party's position is concerned.
Yay! Whoosh! Island is upgrading the entire broadband network to fiber!
Everything?
Everything!
And that means...
Speeds up to 500 megabits per second!
So I can watch all my movies on Netflix. Fast download of really big files. All my gaming. Oh, and of course, my online school. And with packages starting as low as $189.99 per month. iNet Fiber Broadband Network is stronger, more reliable, faster, and unlimited. We're ready to upgrade our first set of customers, so check your area's status on apoainet.ag/fiber. It's time. Welcome to the good life.
It makes me want to.
Tap. Snap my fingers and
Tap, 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 tap,
Yes!
tap.
Follow your own rhythm and enjoy more living, less limits. Because the new chip and pin contactless international debit card from ACB Caribbean makes it easy to pay. Just tap and go. It's reliable, convenient, and secure. With its encrypted smart chip, say goodbye to fraudulent transactions. Plus, it is accepted for payments and cash withdrawals in more than 180 countries and by millions of online merchants. So feel free to live more with the new ACB Caribbean Smart Card.
Simply smarter banking.
This Pinktober, Sagicor encourages you to check yours out. That's right. Get your breast screening done today and don't delay. Screening is the best form of early detection and course of action against breast cancer. Visit Sagicor.com to learn how you can check yours out today.
What time is it? It's winning time with Pick 4. Win over $40,000 around the clock with Pick 4. It's the easiest pick in town. And with 4 draws daily, you get more chances to win over $40,000 with a wager over $10.
What time is it?
It's winning time with Pick 4 from the Caribbean Lottery. Get your tickets today.
This is Observer Radio. Your voice counts. Your questions are answered. This is Observer AM.
It's now 7:32 in Antigua Barbuda. This is Observer AM. We're continuing our discussion with the Communications Officer of the DNA, Ms. Chaneil Imhoff. Ms. Imhoff, speaking or expanding on the conversation about mental wellness, the mental wellness concerns of a teenager or even a preteen, a teenager, your generation, a young adult, your generation, my generation, and then of course those who are retired or close to retirement and beyond, the challenges are different. So how does one address these varied challenges that we experience, multi-generational challenges that we experience from time to time?
Right. So one of the things that we think is extremely important is integrating mental health care with our general health care. Just like how you can, go to a clinic or the hospital for something if you break your hand, your foot, if you're not feeling well. You should be able to access mental health services because one of the biggest barriers is access to mental health services. It's only really quite recently that, Mental Health Talk Antigua has compiled a list of mental health professionals and advocates in Antigua and Barbuda. But prior to that, there was very little known because of the taboo that is placed around mental health. People you hear the word mental health and you think of some person walking naked up and down on the road. No, that's not what it is. So we have to stop labeling people as well who are crazy and calling people crazy. There's so many things going on that we have to try to not only integrate it within our system, but
Hello?
know how to.
Okay.
I'm right here.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm right here. It went dead for like a split second.
Gotcha.
Know how to recognize signs and symptoms. So ensuring that people on the front line, officers, firefighters, nurses, doctors, everyone is mental health first aid trained. Know how to spot someone who's having a mental health emergency. All of these things are important, but it all comes down to integration and education as well. And to do all of that, we have to ensure that our legislation is up to standard. Because when I started, I remember mentioning that our legislation is from 1957. The Mental Treatment Act is from 1957. Both my parents weren't even born in 1957. So you can see how that needs to be modernized and upgraded in order for us to tackle the different sorts of mental health issues within the different generations. Because even not even with just age, women and men also experience mental health issues and process them very differently. So all those demographics have to be taken into consideration, and it will take a lot of education and a lot of changing of the rhetoric that we have around mental health, like removing terminology like lunacy, etc. all of that is important into understanding the mental health needs of your population.
Right. What role do you see the Democratic National Alliance playing in this space, in addressing, to the extent that it can, as an opposition party in a small island economy? What role do you see the party playing in addressing these issues and making a difference in the lives of those who need that difference made?
What I see us doing, and this can be verified by even yourself. You've heard me for the last maybe 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, not only calling for a revision of our legislation, but making yourself available to those who don't have access. It's so underrated how important something as simple as that is. Not everything is rocket science.
Right.
Not everything takes a big event or a panel discussion, etc., etc. Sometimes it's that one-on-one contact and making yourself available to people, which, myself, Madam President especially, has done to ensure that people know that there are people out there who not only care about them, but will make themselves available, even if it's just to talk. Sometimes that's all somebody needs to do. It's not as difficult as many people think. Sometimes you just need to talk, and we will continue to advance the need for this legislation to be changed, to be updated. But there's so many small things that each of us can do, because not only is it important for us as an opposition party yes, we have identified the problem, but we also have to give solutions to a problem. Right? Not only is that important, but it's important for all of us to educate ourselves, educate the people around us about mental health, mental illnesses, challenges, and trying to identify signs and symptoms, etc. It's not difficult.
Okay. Does the party have
kind to people.
Does the party have a specific policy though? Is there somewhere I can go on your Facebook page or other online option where it specifically articulates its approach to addressing mental health issues within the society?
Yes, actually. On our social media, we can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, once they're up and running. And
I think
our
they're
website,
back up now.
yes, they are, dnaab.com/issues. So not only will you find, mental health, etc. policies there, but you find all the policies that were listed in our policy document, Division 2040. You can find all of this, online. There, I think there's a video as well of a young person really talking about, we asked a few young people what attracted them to the DNA, what do they think of some of the policies, etc. Somebody actually zeroed in on the mental health policy, because of course last few years, especially with COVID-19 exacerbating the situation, it's gone sort of off of the back burner and creeping to the front.
All right. Do you think that there needs to be more collaboration between the parties? I mean, you have the Democratic National Alliance, you have, of course, the United Progressive Party, and you have the Antigua-Barbuda Labour Party, and many have argued that, there's too much division still, even in dealing with this particular issue, and really we should be united on this one issue, if nothing else, because it's existential. Do you think that there is the possibility of that happening, where the DNA could work along with the UPP and the Labour Party to deal with this pandemic and deal with the issue of mental health specifically?
I personally think it's possible, and it's not something that has not yet happened. It has already happened, because one of our team leaders, Louis Rivera, actually sat on the Economic Recovery Committee.
Oh, okay.
So
we haven't heard much. We haven't heard much about that since, though, to be honest. But
that's another story there, Darren. That's a whole nother Tuesday morning. But it is something that has been happening and will continue. We have made ourselves available to ensure that as much people as possible are represented during this pandemic. So the Democratic National Alliance has been vocal from the very onset. We've never been divisive. We understand and appreciate all sides of the argument, and we are committed to ensuring that we stay that way. So, if we're invited to, sit on any committees like the ERC, the invitation will be accepted. We are more than ready and able to work along with who we need to work along with to get us out of this pandemic. We're all not going to agree on everything all of the time. That is just not realistic. But we have and will continue to be vocal about issues and to be able to work with people when we need to be able to work with people.
Okay. What do you think about the freedom fighters and their advocacy on the vaccine, on mask wearing, on other issues that they're concerned about? Does the party have has the party been in any way in dialogue with them, or at least understanding their position? Any conversations at all between the party and that particular group?
Not that I am aware of, but I remember when they had the first protest, not the first protest, but when they had the protest by the VC Bird bus.
The infamous one.
The infamous protest.
Yes.
We would have put out a release condemning the use of excessive force, because at the end of the day, even if you do not agree with where someone is coming from, you have a right to express whatever opinion, etc. you have without the threat of physical violence.
Okay. All right.
So as I said earlier, we are for the people and the country, and we have from the beginning not tried to be divisive, because this was never supposed to be a political issue. This is an issue of health, safety, and people, and that is the line that we continue to take.
The listeners will be listening to you, and it sounds great and wonderful and kumbaya-ish, if that's a word. But, your political leader has not been very kind to the PM and to his administration and his handling of it, and will say, well, you say you don't want division, but the party has not been kind to the government in that respect. Not that I'm saying there shouldn't be criticism if there is warranted, but you understand the point I'm making. Sometimes the language, or at least the posture and the criticism, and the level of the criticism is one that does not foster a spirit of unifying spirit, if you understand the point that I'm making, because there's always that politics at play. How would you respond to those critics? Who will put that question to you, Chaneil?
I think you already answered the question, because there's always that politics at play. And when you're in a position of leadership, you open up yourself for criticism. And once again, we're all not going to ever agree on everything, because democracy thrives when there are diverse groups, thoughts, and opinions. And whereas I might go about it a little differently, somebody else might go about the criticism a little differently.
Okay.
It's just possibly a difference in opinion, because if today we are called, which we were, to any consultation, etc., the DNA has showed up and will always show up. Yes, the criticism will be there, but it's not criticism without action.
Gotcha.
As well.
Gotcha. Chaneil Imhoff, always great talking to you. Thank you so much for being a part of the program. All right, all the best to you.
One more thing.
Yeah, real quick. You have to be quick. Real quick.
From next week, the DNA will be hosting a series of panel discussions, public forums on the pandemic. So we're currently in the process of finalizing our local and regional and international.
I'm going to be a devil's advocate. One could argue you all could have partnered with the UPP on their virtual series and make one thing. What do you say? No?
Well, we started our public forums quite some time ago. It's just a continuation of that.
All right. Very well. Smart answer. Have a good one, Chaneil. Take care.
Thank you, Darren.
Bye-bye.